Whose fault is it? The list of suspects is long and the motive obvious. Anyone in proximity to Spears stood to gain money and power. Was it Justin Timberlake? After their breakup in 2002, boosting his profile and making him a more bankable star? Was it her father, Jamie, who controls her massive wealth? Was it Diane Sawyer, Paris Hilton, or Matt Lauer, now a known sexual predator, who implied during a TV interview that the crying 25-year-old mother of two was a bad parent? Or was it the men who drifted in and out of her life, often older, greasy, almost typecast versions of men who prey on vulnerable women? Or the paparazzi? Many of us will never forget the image of her makeup-smeared face as she stared emotionless at her reflection as lock after lock fell to the floor. The moment was captured for the world to see by the tens of paparazzi that spied through the salon window. Just 3 months earlier, Britney had filed for divorce from a man she had once described as the love of her life, Kevin Federline. She has always fallen hard in relationships, and with Kevin it was no different, recalls a friend of the former couple. When it ended, it broke her. In those days, when the pressure of fame got too much for Britney, she would talk about her dream of one day living just a regular life, in a regular house with a husband and kids. All she wanted was to raise a family and find pleasure in the small things, the friend explains. We all knew it was probably never going to happen, but that was the place she went to in her head when she needed an escape from her celebrity existence. So when she met Kevin, it was not just the beginning of a romance, but also the beginning of a long-held wish. Continues the source, she really thought now they had found one another, that was it. When it ended, she didn't just lose a husband. In a way, she lost her dream as well. By the end of 2006, a newly single Britney was coping with the pain of her shattered marriage by hanging out with notorious party girls Paris Hilton and Lindsay Lohan. The trio grabbed headlines everywhere they went, self-medicating on the attention every naked crotch shot earned them. Family and friends became increasingly concerned by Britney's nocturnal adventures as she retreated further and further into the dark recesses of the Hollywood club scene. Finally, just days before her shaved head incident, she was encouraged to check into an Antigua rehab facility, but help didn't last long. Just 24 hours later, she discharged herself and hopped on a plane back to LA. The first thing she did was try and visit her kids, a close source said at the time. But when she tried to see them, she was told she needed to get help first. She kind of lost it. Finally, she gave up, and that's when she found herself inside the small mom and pop hair business. She told the salon owner her extensions were too tight and she wanted to remove them. But when she was encouraged to reconsider such a dramatic solution, Britney grew impatient, grabbed the razor and started the job herself. In the days that followed her impromptu haircut, it was widely speculated her decision was really motivated by a desire to avoid having her hair drug tested. But we now know her reasoning was much simpler. As a source explains, when she shaved her head, it was quite literally a way for her to try to rid herself of her past. She felt like everything in her life was dictated by someone else. In her mind, people were always trying to tell her what to do, how to act. They were constantly touching her, telling her what to wear, how to style her hair. She felt like a doll. Shaving her hair off was the ultimate rebellion. It was almost a cleansing experience. It was her way of sending a clear message that she was no longer willing to be controlled. At that time, Britney had already spent over a decade in the public eye. From her days next to Ryan Gosling on the Mickey Mouse Club to her high-profile romance with Justin Timberlake, we had all witnessed her blossom from sweet, innocent Southern girl into an international megastar. But all that fame and money had come at a price, because in the end the pressure that came with our adoration and constant demands had driven Britney to literally try and rip out her hair. In some way, we did that to her, all of us, reasons the source. She had worked so hard, and yet she had nothing to show for it. No husband, no access to her kids, a fractured relationship with her family, and what she felt was no say in her life. She felt worthless. 2 days after the buzz cut, after pleas from her family and team, Britney once again checked herself into rehab. But yet again, her stay was fleeting. Soon, she was back at her estranged husband's house begging to see her babies, and like before, she was unsuccessful. It was then that she took out her rage by wielding a green umbrella and attacking the car of a photographer who had been following her. It was a terrible time, says the friend. Not having access to her children felt like torture, and she didn't know who to trust. She was convinced she was being watched all the time. She even thought her conversations were being recorded. We now know the events of that weekend were only the beginning. What followed was 11 months of utter mayhem as the biggest pop star in the world fell apart at the seams. There were myriad pastel-colored wigs, midnight runs to drugstores, a fake English accent, and various dubious characters who tried to take advantage of her increasingly vulnerable state. The drama at her mountaintop Mulholland Drive mansion was never ending. Impending danger seemed to lurk everywhere. It all came to a staggering halt when, the following January, her mom Lynn Spears gained access to the compound and Britney was finally carried out of her home while strapped to a gurney and admitted to hospital. Britney no longer has a desire to run away. She's in a good place, says a friend who is in contact with the family. She has her boys and she's making music and performing for her fans. Being a mom makes her very happy. There are still some painful reminders of that night at Esther's hair salon. Most obviously, of course, is the conservatorship which was put in place after she was admitted to hospital. It means the girl who once rebelled against being controlled has even less freedom than she did before her breakdown. Every so often rumors bubble up that Britney wants out of the legal constraints, but they rarely persist. It means the girl who once rebelled against being controlled has even less free. Own source insists the lengthy conservatorship is necessary and something burdom than she did before her breakdown. Every so often rumors bubble up that Britney wants out of the legal constraints, but they rarely persist. Her former manager, Sam Lutfi, a man her parents considered to be a bad influence on their daughter in those final months before her hospitalization, is also still in the background. He has always maintained his role at that time was to keep her safe, but any memory of him is fading. Her former manager, Sam Lutfi, a man her parents considered to be a bad influence on their daughter in those final months before her hospitalization, is also still in the background. He has always maintained his role at that time was to keep her safe, but any memory of him is fading. The fall and rise of Britney Spears is ultimately one of determination and hope. While the image of a freshly buzzed then 25-year-old is still heartbreaking to look at, it is also a testament to her strength. While her downfall was dizzyingly rapid, her subsequent rise is equally as dramatic. As someone who loves her very much explained to me, she fought with everything she's got to get her life back. That shows you who she really is. She feels deeply, and while that can make her vulnerable, it also reveals her courage. She survived. I don't know anyone who has managed to so publicly claw back from the